The current perception around the continent these days may be that Nigeria is still not at South Africa's standard. However, if you've been following the current economic trend, you are going to realize that Nigeria has managed to build a strong economy in less than record time, while South Africa has only struggled to stay relevant over the course of recent years. So, in truth, the new tourist fashion, we're going to be doing another edition of our Versus segment. Nigeria takes on South Africa. Which country is better? Well, that's all left for you to decide in the comments. So let's get right into it. We're going to touch on a lot of issues today, as usual. A lot of interesting facts concerning the economy, demographics, transportation, quality of life, as well as aspects such as the environment and even the nature of the broadband network infrastructure. So things should get interesting soon enough. Geography. Kicking things off, we're going to be talking about geography. The geography of a country is super important in determining its suitability, especially to foreigners. There's a reason no one builds an island resort in Greenland. That said, let's talk about surface areas. It can be nice to live in big cities or countries, as a larger space may offer more options for residents and visitors. Nigeria has a surface area of around 923,768 square kilometers, while South Africa has a surface area of 1,219,090 square kilometers. The percentage of land covered by forests is also key. Forests have a key role in removing pollutants and cleansing the air. Nigeria's surface area is 9.5% forest, while South Africa's surface area is 7.6%. This means Nigeria's air is slightly fresher than South Africa's. The percentage of land dedicated to agricultural use, including arable land, permanent crops, and permanent pasture, is vital to every economy, especially an economy in need of raw materials for its industrial sector. Nigeria has about 78% of its surface area dedicated to agricultural use, while South Africa has about 79.4% of its surface area dedicated to agricultural use. Let us take a look at coastlines, which is the total length of the border between the land area and the sea, including the country's islands. It is incredibly important for touristic purposes as well as vacations and retreats. Proper examples of these include Miami in the US, Rio in Brazil, and basically every other Caribbean island. It is equally important to the economy of a country, which is where shipping ports are built. It is the biggest gateway when it comes to exporting and importing goods into the country. Nigeria has 853 kilometers of coastal land, and South Africa has a total of 2,798 kilometers of coastal land. This means that South Africa would have a lot more activities going on its coastlines than Nigeria. The country's total water area, summing up all inland waters including lakes, rivers, reservoirs, wetlands, etc., is very important in determining the availability of potable water sources and the environmental state of the country's various ecosystems. Nigeria has a water area of about 13,000 square kilometers compared to South Africa's 4,000 square kilometers. This means Nigeria on a scale should have better provisions when it comes to potable water. If you are still watching, it means you find our content interesting. Let us know by hitting the like button. Have you done that? Let's move on. Economy. Now let us talk about the economy. The gross domestic product, or GDP, reflects the value and productivity of an economy. It measures the market value of all the final goods and services produced annually. To reflect the differences in the cost of living and inflation rates, we show the GDP at purchasing power parity. First of all, Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa right now. Nigeria has a GDP of $1.2 trillion, which makes it the richest country in Africa, while South Africa has a GDP of $813 billion. Nigeria also has a value-added tax rate of 5%, and South Africa has a VAT of 15%. The public debt, also known as government debt or national debt. Public debt refers to the sum of all government borrowings owed to lenders within the country. Nigeria has a public debt that is around 21% of its GDP, while South Africa has a public debt that is 53% of its GDP. We can't talk economy without mentioning inflation. The inflation rate represents the annual price increase for goods and services, indicating a decrease in the purchasing power of a country's currency. Nigeria has an inflation rate of 16.5%, while South Africa has an inflation rate of 5.3%. A low unemployment rate indicates better career opportunities and economic growth. Nigeria has an unemployment rate of 16.7%, while South Africa has an unemployment rate of 27.5%. The GDP per capita is calculated by dividing the total GDP by the number of people living in the country. A higher GDP per capita indicates a superior standard of living. Nigeria has a GDP per capita of $6,130, while South Africa has a GDP per capita of $13,800. Let's talk about the youth unemployment rate. The number of young people between the ages of 15 and 24 who are unemployed during a specific year. The youth unemployment rate is calculated as a percent of the total youth labor force. Nigeria has a youth unemployment rate of 12.4%, and South Africa has a youth unemployment rate of 53.4%. The total amount of public and private health expenditure on medical and paramedical services in Nigeria is about 3.7% of GDP and 8.1% of GDP in South Africa. Nigeria has a labor force of 60 million people, while South Africa has a youth population of 22.18 million people. The total amount of public expenditure on military and security services, such as military forces, police, and public security in Nigeria, is 0.5% of GDP and 1.07% of GDP in South Africa. Demographics. Another very important aspect of a country is its demographics, and this is important in determining several factors such as the country's population, population density, and growth rate. So let us talk about population. Populous cities or countries usually offer better employment opportunities because of their large economies. Big cities attract companies and business investments and are usually important cultural centers and research hubs. Nigeria has a population of over 200 million inhabitants, while South Africa has a population of over 57 million people. This means you would have a bigger market and audience if you introduce a business in Nigeria rather than in South Africa. We can't talk about population without talking about population density, which shows how cramped or spread out inhabitants are. Cities or countries with high population densities can be considered overpopulated, which can be a problem if the infrastructure is underdeveloped. Nigeria has a population density of 215 people per square kilometer, while South Africa has a population density of 47 people per square kilometer. That is why many Nigerians seem to struggle when it comes to getting basic amenities. Waste management becomes harder. Road traffic increases. Housing becomes a problem, and at the end of the day, there could be high crime waves just as a means to survive. Let's talk about the population growth rate of both countries. The average population growth rate reflects the annual increase or decrease in population. Currently, the world's population is growing at a rate of approximately 1.07% per year. The higher the growth, the more dynamic society feels. Nigeria has an annual population growth rate of 2.45%, while South Africa has an annual population growth rate of 0.79%. What is the life expectancy in these two countries? The average life expectancy at birth is the number of years that the population of a country is expected to live. This metric reflects the overall quality of life. Nigeria has an overall life expectancy of 59 years, while South Africa has an overall life expectancy of 64 years. This means that as a Nigerian, you have a high chance of dying at the age of 59, while a South African can live up to the age of 64. The overall life expectancy for women is higher than for men in both Nigeria and South Africa. Women are expected to live up to 63 in Nigeria and only 57 for men born in the same year, while women are expected to live up to 65 in South Africa to men's 63. Let's compare the birth rate in both countries. The birth rate, also known as crude birth rate, refers to the annual number of births per 1,000 people. Calculated mid-year, it is one of the main factors used to determine the population growth rate. The birth rate of Nigeria is 35.2 per thousand, and that of South Africa is 19.9 per thousand. The death rate, also called the crude death rate, represents the number of annual deaths per 1,000 people at mid-year. Nigeria has a death rate of 9.6 per thousand, while South Africa has a death rate of 9.3 per thousand. The average number of children born to each woman is known as the total fertility rate. To calculate the total fertility rate, it is assumed that all women live to the end of their childbearing years and give birth in alignment with the prevailing age-specific fertility rates in the country. Nigeria has a total fertility rate of 4.6 on this index, and South Africa has a total fertility rate of 2.26 on the same index, meaning Nigerian women are twice as fertile more than South African women. Cities or countries with younger populations have usually better development perspectives. Young societies are more dynamic and creative. Generally, a lower median age is considered better because a younger population is healthier. However, countries with an extremely low median age are often facing socioeconomic problems, especially poverty. Nigeria has a median age of 18 years and South Africa has a median age of 27 years. Infrastructure. Let's now dive into infrastructure, beginning with the percentage of internet users. Only 25% of Nigerians have access to the internet, and about 54% of South Africans have access to the internet. This means more South Africans have access to the internet than Nigerians. The share of the population with access to electricity in both rural and urban environments in Nigeria is about 59% and 84% in South Africa. Electricity has always been a major problem in Nigeria, which is not the case in South Africa. South Africa enjoys better electricity than Nigeria. The railway network is a crucial part of any country's economy. The more developed a country's railway, the more improved the economy, as it eases the movement of goods and people from one place to another. South Africa has a better railway network than Nigeria. The total length of Nigeria's railway network is 2,798 kilometers and about 20,986 kilometers in South Africa. The presence and number of airports also show how good is the connection to the city with different international destinations and its international accessibility. Nigeria has 54 airports and South Africa has 566 airports. Quality of life. Now we can't end this epic battle without talking about the quality of life of Nigerians and South Africans, so let's get right into it. Starting off with obesity. An obese adult has a body mass index equal to or greater than 30. Obesity is a public health problem and increases the risk of chronic diseases. Nigeria has an obesity rate of 8.9% and South Africa has an obesity rate of 28.3%. This means adult Nigerians are healthier than adult South Africans. The percentage of the country's population living below the poverty line, as reported by official statistics, is 70% of the population in Nigeria and 16% of the population in South Africa. This means out of every 10 Nigerians, 7 people live below the poverty line. And finally, the school life expectancy represents the number of years of schooling that children are expected to complete. School life expectancy includes primary to tertiary education. The school life expectancy in Nigeria is about 9 years old, and in South Africa, it's 14 years old. To conclude, there is a whole load of factors that have contributed to the success of both Nigeria and South Africa, but both come short on even some of the most basic necessities that everyday citizens rely on. The ball is in your court. Who is better, Nigeria or South Africa? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, follow, share and like our video. It's the best way of supporting us.